This video is sponsored by Marvel Dice Throne Expansion Pack. More on that later on in the video. It was a fan's dream and finally a reality. All of your favorite heroes on the big screen at the same time. This is what the Marvel Cinematic Universe was building towards. Or at least that's what we thought at the time. Hi, I'm Pat Whalen with yet another MCU podcast. And this is everything you should know, Marvel's The Avengers. Thank you to Marvel Dice Throne for sponsoring today's video. Marvel Dice Throne is a fast and fun board game fit for all ages. Whether you're just looking for an exciting game date night, a fun family challenge, or to take on your own Avengers team of board game enthusiasts, Marvel Dice Throne is right for everyone. Each player selects one of 8 heroes to face off in head-to-head battles to see who earns the right to take the throne. Gameplay involves strategically rolling dice to activate special abilities, playing unique hero cards to manipulate results, and upgrading your hero board to power your stats. Marvel Dice Throne is a game you're going to want to return to over and over again. Not only will you want to play as all 8 characters, including Loki, Scarlet Witch, Miles Morales, and Captain Marvel, you're also going to want to master each character's special skills and strategy to see how they fare against their opponents. You can support Marvel Dice Throne on Kickstarter today and reserve your copy. Check the link in the description to head over to Marvel Dice Throne Kickstarter right now and get rolling to see who takes the throne. When Marvel Entertainment launched their in-house production company, Marvel Studios, it was always with the idea that eventually the characters would interact with each other. Up to this point, characters stayed within the realm of their own films, usually with completely different tones. The Fox-controlled X-Men and Fantastic Four never crossed over. Spider-Man swung around the streets of New York solo, and Blade staked vamps all by his lonesome. Even Marvel's distinguished competition segregated their heroes into standalone stories. The closest we ever got to a big-screen superhero crossover was the Batman-Superman movie billboard in 2007's I Am Legend. Comic book fans, however, were used to their characters crossing over. Whether you're a fan of DC or Marvel, you're certainly no stranger to team-up books like the Avengers or Justice League, or you regularly expect characters from the same universe to guest star in another hero's book. Timely Publications, which became Atlas Comics in 1950 before settling on Marvel Comics in 1961, struggled following the World War II comic book boom for several reasons. Number 1, as we discussed in our Captain America episode, the Star-Spangled Star had fallen out of favor with a country that had won the war. All the Nazis that needed punching had been punched. Number 2, American audiences found a new medium for disposable content with the advent of television in the 1950s. And finally, number 3, and one of the biggest reasons, comic books were accused of leading to the rise of juvenile delinquency in the youth of America. Let's stay here for a second. Frederick Wertham, a psychiatrist, published the book Seduction of the Innocent, which posited the theory that the actions in comic books were negatively impacting young readers. While he was mostly targeting the horror and crime comics of the time, superhero and romance books did not go unscathed. Wertham's claims eventually led to the United States Senate Subcommittee on Juvenile Delinquency, which saw comic book publishers testify under oath regarding the content and potential impact of their publications. The industry was under fire, and in an attempt to save itself, the major publishers developed the self-governing Comics Code Authority, which regulated all published content. Many publishers went out of business because of the new regulations. Prior to the publication of Seduction of the Innocent, it's estimated that between 70 to 150 million comic books were being sold per month. After Wertham's book was released, circulation dropped by an estimated 40%. Atlas Comics' Marvel's predecessor, plan of action during the time was to drop their more controversial titles and operate on a shoestring budget while publishing comics featuring legacy superheroes and romance books. However, things would change for the company at the dawn of the Silver Age. The Silver Age, a comic book term, was a time when companies focused more on quality. They revitalized superhero comic books and put an emphasis on more sci-fi than ever before. While there's no official dates for the Silver Age, it's assumed that it kicked off with DC's reintroduction of the Flash in 1956 and ran to about 1970. It took a few more years for Marvel to catch up, but when they did, they hit pay dirt. In 1961, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby introduced the world to the Fantastic Four. Ant-Man, the Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, the X-Men, and many, many others soon followed. Marvel published hit after hit, telling interpersonal dramatic stories disguised as superhero tales. Yes, they had all the trappings of traditional superheroes: tights, secret identities, and superpowers. But Lee, Kirby, John Romita Sr., Steve Ditko, Don Heck, and the other Marvel godfathers treated these characters like human beings with all their imperfections. We saw the Fantastic Four squabble like all families do. Spider-Man struggled to pay his bills and make it to class on time. And Iron Man touched on real issues readers were seeing in the news on a regular basis. The Marvel think tank was building a universe from the ground up. Marvel tapped into their growing roster of characters, having them interact on a regular basis. What was happening in Spider-Man's life would transfer over when he guest starred in an issue of the Fantastic Four. This all led to the publication of the Avengers. At first, it was a response by Marvel to meet the growing interest in team books, such as DC's Justice League of America. However, the Avengers carried over that familiar storytelling style of flawed superheroes saving the day. This was the same concept that producers David Maisel and Kevin Feige wanted to capture as they built out the MCU. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and the others could seamlessly interact because the foundation would be there from the start. Marvel Studios successfully laid the groundwork with Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America, the First Avenger. It was now time to bring them all together. It was time to assemble the... What? What do you mean I can't use the tagline? Yeah, why not? The teaser trailer did. Anyway, plans for the Avengers film began back in 2003 and took further shape in 2005 when Marvel secured financing from Merrill Lynch. Marvel Studios even pitched the idea of individual films leading to the final team-up film of the Avengers to Wall Street investors. Zach Penn was tasked to pen the script. Listen, if they keep hiring the guy, I'm going to keep making the same joke. Jon Favreau was originally slated to direct, but he ultimately backed out in 2009, stating that he was too close to the Iron Man character, that to bring in new characters and mythologies like Thor and Captain America would be difficult for him to do. Upon urging from his wife, executive producer Jeremy Latcham brought cult favorite director Joss Whedon on board. Whedon, known for popular TV shows Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly, and Dollhouse, was an odd choice, as his only feature film credit at the time was directing the Firefly sequel, Serenity. He would also rewrite the script. According to the recently released book, The Story of Marvel Studios, there were two main plot points from the original Whedon script that never made it into the final version. The first was Obadiah Stane's never-before-seen son, Zeke, as the main villain, seeking revenge against Iron Man. The second was the appearance of the Wasp, and according to the book, was the focus of the story. Eventually, Marvel and Whedon settled on a script. They would pull from two key sources of Avengers lore. In the first Avengers storyline by Lee and Kirby, Thor's brother Loki comes to Earth where he manipulates the Hulk into a destructive rampage. Thor joins forces with Iron Man, Ant-Man, and the Wasp to stop the Green Giant before defeating the God of Mischief. Issue number 4 saw Captain America join the team, and then Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and the reformed villain Hawkeye would join in later issues. The second source material they used was The Ultimates. This 2002 retelling by Mark Miller and Brian Hitch attempted to modernize the Avengers for, dare I say it, a post-9/11 world. The Ultimates were a state-sponsored superhero team overseen by the clandestine agency S.H.I.E.L.D. Initially, they dealt with an out-of-control Hulk before defending the Earth from the Chitauri invasion. The Ultimates was a turning point for comic books as it brought several changes, mostly the characterization's origin and tone. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, Clark Gregg, Tom Hiddleston, and Samuel L. Jackson all returned to reprise their roles from the individual lead-up films. As we previously discussed, Mark Ruffalo replaced Edward Norton as Bruce Banner, and Colby Smulders joined the cast as S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Maria Hill. Marvel's The Avengers premiered on May 4th, 2012, immediately catapulting Marvel into the cultural consciousness. Yes, the prior films all had successful box office runs, and the Iron Man films were considered must-see viewing, but it was the culminating final film of Phase 1 that validated the original idea of what the MCU could become. The Avengers grossed over $1.5 billion, becoming, at the time, the third highest grossing film of all time, behind Avatar and Titanic. I remember going to the midnight premiere and having one of the best movie experiences of my life. The energy was high from the moment we stood in the pre-show line all the way to the end credit teaser. Critics agreed. The film currently holds a 91% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert said it provides its fans with exactly what they desire. And Peter Travers of Rolling Stone said, "I saw in my head when I imagined a movie that brought together the idols of the Marvel world in one shiny, stupendously exciting package. It's Transformers with a heart, a brain, and a working sense of humor." The MCU is now culturally ingrained as the peak of pop culture for the 21st century. Almost immediately, Hollywood saw value in the shared universe concept. Warner Brothers and DC announced a slate of projects similar in scope to the MCU, most of which have not yet been fulfilled. Universal attempted a shared horror universe, and even Sony wanted to combine their 21 Jump Street and Men in Black franchises. While DC has had middling success, the other two world-building projects failed to get off the ground. While not every project in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been perfect, they still do it better than the rest. It was the shared vision of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby brought to the big screen. Superheroes interacting like you would only hope they could.
Superheroes in New York? Give me a break.
That's our look back at 2012's Marvel's The Avengers. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments who your pick to join the next iteration of The Avengers is. If you're interested in reading more about The Avengers and not sure where to start, you can check out our recommended reading video that features Marvel Masterworks, which collects the first 10 issues of the original Avengers run by Stan and Jack, Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes by Joe Casey with art by Scott Collins, and finally the alternate universe retelling, The Ultimates by Mark Miller and Brian Hitch. Let us know in the comments below what you're reading. Thanks again to Marvel Dice Throne for sponsoring today's video. Remember to check out the link in the description to support their Kickstarter. And as always, I'm Pat Whalen with yet another MCU podcast on Forgotten Entertainment. I'll see you next time.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.